We have a new political analyst joining us today. It is Rudy Husny. He is a former advisor in the Harper government. He's also a political analyst and strategist, and he is on the line. Rudy, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
And the same to you. And, of course, our feature is brought to you by Guaranteed Industries, reminding you they can keep you warm right through the winter. They are a Lennox Premier dealer, 514-342-3400, or more information online. That is at guaranteedindustries.com. So you're a former advisor in the Harper government. I'm sure you are very happy with the way things have been falling apart for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. You heard the statement yesterday when Justin Trudeau announced his resignation. You heard him talk about Chrystia Freeland. What was your immediate reaction?
Look, the reality is that Trudeau didn't, in fact, see the sign or the signals. I mean, he didn't listen to his caucus. I do believe that he missed his exit. I mean, there was a lot of sign, especially when he lost the riding, for example, in Montreal or in Toronto, St. Paul. And I mean, look, I think that we're in a bad situation in Canada when it comes to, the uncertainty that is happening right now. We just saw everything that is happening with all those statements from Donald Trump, and having this situation of having a lame duck prime minister in a very, very crucial time. I mean, President Trump is coming on January 20th. It's going to be his first 100 days. And while he's going to do some executive orders and all of that, what are we going to do in Canada? Nothing, because our House of Commons is basically prorogued. It's closed. There's going to be no bills. There's going to be no question period. And it's just going to be a period of uncertainty until at least end of March. And I don't believe that it's very helpful for Canada right now. So, look, I think that the Prime Minister did the right decision in terms of, calling quits. But I think he should have realized that a long, long time ago, and that he should have seen the signals.
To your point, I think he realized it a long, long time ago. But as he said repeatedly yesterday, Rudy, I'm a fighter. And we know that in his particular case, this is just, I guess this has been part of his, or will be part of his legacy. He doesn't give up. He actually thinks up until the last possible second that he can still win, that he can still lead.
Yes, I think you're correct. But if he's a fighter, he should have at least, tried to have an election, because at that time, imagine he would have said, okay, we're going to an election before a U.S. election, for example, or late last summer. I mean, his caucus would have said, okay, we're going. It was just every week. I was waking up every morning for the past, 2-3 months, checking the news and say, okay, who's going to stab Mr. Trudeau? Who's going to announce that he or she's not running again?
Right.
Which cabinet minister is basically going to say, look, I'm calling quits? So I think that if he would have called an election, if he said that he was a fighter, he should have said this. And honestly, when I think about the Liberals, I think about Jean Chrétien. And Jean Chrétien would have said, you know what? When they tried to push him at, the very early signs with Paul Martin, what did he do? He called an election, and he won.
So it's obviously a little late now for Justin Trudeau to consider that. Let me ask you the other thing today with respect to Chrystia Freeland. We spent a lot of time talking about this. That was the last nail in the coffin as far as Justin Trudeau is concerned, right? Fair to say that?
Oh, yes. Look, what's it's interesting in politics is that sometimes your closest allies can cause the most harms in politics. And that's exactly what happened. Because, I mean, yes, there was when Jody Wilson-Raybould resigned a few years ago, it was difficult for Justin Trudeau, but he recovered. But Chrystia Freeland, who's been by his side since the beginning, I believe that he's the one who personally recruited her as a candidate back in, I believe, in 2013 or 2014. So you can see that in politics, sometimes your closest ally, your number two in a way, really are the ones that, made it happen. And you can think a little bit like exactly what happened with Lucien Bouchard, for example, back in the Mulroney years. Lucien Bouchard was a very, very close ally to Brian Mulroney. The moment he resigned, we know what happened. Yeah. I think it was the same for Justin Trudeau. So I think it's a little bit of a lesson learned for politicians. Be careful. I mean, sometimes your closest allies and closest advisors and your number two, when they decide to quit, I mean, it can make, this is what can cause you the most harm. I mean, if you do a little also lesson learned for François Legault, Premier François Legault in Quebec, it didn't happen, but it could have when Minister Pierre Fitzgibbon resigned in September, or when the Prime Minister asked him to resign. it could have maybe, been very, very harmful. I mean, he recovered, François Legault, for the moment, but you can see that in politics, you have to be careful. Those close allies and close, also sometimes personal friends, can actually hurt you the most.
So I would guess, given that you are, still a conservative, I guess, but you work with a former administration. A lot has been made of this whole proroguing, and I point out to the fact that we've been told now. Stephen Harper did the same back in the day. What's the difference between then and now?
But he called an election right after it, and by the way, he did win that election, I believe in 2008. But I think the context is, I think, very different. I mean, look, we knew there was going to be a U.S. election. And regardless, and I'm saying this, regardless of a conservative or a liberal prime minister, normally when you know there's going to be tough negotiation, when there's going to be perhaps a new president in the United States, the rule is that you ask to have a strong mandate. And I think that they should have realized that. I think that Mr. Trudeau, in a way, was planning on the fact that even if Donald Trump wins, it's going to give him a boost in the polls. I think that was their calculation. They said, look, Canadians are going to realize they don't want to have Trump on one side of the border and Poilievre in this side of the border, and that it would give them a boost in the polls. That actually didn't happen. And now at the last minute, when basically there's nothing else, they just said, okay, I'm proroguing the House, not allowing anything to go forward, and basically scheming to trying to see, hey, who's going to run and who's not going to run. And let's be honest. I mean, look, if there's going to be some cabinet ministers that decides to run, I don't know. You know the names, Mélanie Joly, Anita Anand, perhaps other cabinet minister, perhaps Dominique LeBlanc. I don't know right now. But if they decide to run, you know the rule that they have to step down. So what does it mean? Another shuffle? I mean, look, we don't have a parliament. We have a lame duck prime minister. We're maybe going to have some ministers who decide or who are going to decide to maybe run, and they will have to step down. And what is going to happen, even if they're going to appoint new ministers, Liberals are going to focus on, looking for their next leader and not, fixing the housing crisis, fixing the immigration, fixing the justice system, or just, being strong against the U.S. And what's going to happen is I believe a lot of provinces also are now very worried because it was all about Team Canada. We have to have a united Team Canada when it comes to the federal government and provinces to fight the U.S. But I believe now it's not going to happen because there's going to be a lot of difficulties inside Canada in having one negotiation position with the U.S.
So we finally had the Prime Minister come out today and answer Donald Trump, and I don't know if you saw his statement on social media. So finally something gets done. Pierre Poilievre did the same. I wonder, do you think this leaves us in a rather vulnerable position given the fact that nothing's going to be happening until the end of March as far as dealing with the U.S. and dealing with Donald Trump?
I believe so. I believe so because, look, Mr. Trump, and, even if Prime Minister makes a very strong statement, and I believe he did, and a lot, they're just going to say, Justin, who? I mean, you're not going to be there past March, possibly. And don't forget one thing also, something that we haven't mentioned. Canada is supposed to be hosting the G7 this year in Alberta in June. And normally when you're hosting the G7 and when you have the presidency of the G7, you're supposed to set the agenda, and it's supposed to be a worldwide agenda with our six closest partners. What kind of agenda Canada can set? Because whatever Mr. Trudeau will say or do, or even, talk to Germany, talk to the UK, talk to Italy, Japan, and all our other partners on very international and important issues, they're just going to say, look, maybe it's your priority, but maybe it's not going to be the priority of the next Liberal leader who's going to be Prime Minister for a very short term. And you're going to be in an election, and most likely there's going to be a change of government. And that change of government will happen, most likely in April or May, depending on the date of a possible election. So it leaves, again, Canada in a very difficult position. So I don't believe that proroguing the government was a good decision. I think that Mr. Trudeau was obviously very late in resigning. He should have called an election ahead of time. And I think that now, we're back to Canadians should choose what they want as a future and not allow to give enough time for the Liberals to bring somebody else who, at the end of the day, is only going to be Prime Minister for a very, very short term.
And that's where we leave it today. Rudy, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Aaron. My pleasure.
Rudy Husny, former advisor in the Harper government. He'll be joining us on every Tuesday afternoon.